neighborhood, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Wouldn't you like to be my neighbor? Good morning. It is time for another pre-market PulseScan edition with yours truly, Dex Diago Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave price trigger reports that we put right in your hand each and every trading morning. That's how we roll. All right, so as we are on and crack-a-lacking in these markets, let's jump right into it. Excuse me, we got a lot to talk about this morning. Just when you thought that Take Back Friday, which today is Take Back Friday, for those that don't know, all right, Take Back Friday, yep, Take Back Friday. This is the day that markets like to turn. You know, they like to turn. If the market's been up all week, it's going to pull back today as people take money off the table so they can go party over the weekend. If the market's been down all week, then it's going to rally today because people want to go what? Party over the weekend. All right? They want to go party. They want to go to the club. They want to go to the bar. They want to go out to movies, take the family out to dinner, go to the beach house, whatever. People just want to have some fun. And you got to have some money these days to have some fun. So you work hard and you play hard. All right. So with that being said, let's look at these overnight markets. Right now, the headline is futures fall on China tensions. All right. You know, they always have to find a rational explanation for market behavior. All right. Right now, the Dow futures are down 207 points at 25,250, getting close to the overnight low of 25,208. Looking at the NASDAQ 100, we're down by 7.75 points at 94.52 half. Overnight low was 93.81 1/4. Looking at the E-mini S&P 500, it's down 17.25 points at 30.21 1/4. Overnight low was 30.11 1/4. Looking at the Russell, which I made my hustle, is down 16.1 points at 1391.1. Overnight low was 1387. And yes, I am no longer long the Russell. I have become short the Russell, and I'm holding that short trade right now. If the market continues to fall down and close down today, then I might go ahead and hold that over the weekend. Looking at the Bitcoin Futures Composite Index, down 55 bucks at 95.05. Overnight low was 94.25. Looking like the market wants to continue to push lower here. We'll see what happens. Nat gas down a penny at $1.81. Crude oil down 80 cents at $32.90 a barrel. Like I said, it's having some overhead resistance problems. If we were to get above $35, let's say we got like a strong close at at 35 today, then that would be a very bullish sign, and then that would be a signal to get on board because we're going to 50. But right now, as weak as the oil is looking, it needs to really do something if it's going to maintain this current trajectory. And right now, I don't think so. I think the overhead resistance is strong. I think it's going to push back. Looking at the long bond, we're up 30 seconds right now at 178 even. Right near the highs of the session of 178.05. That's 178 and 5/30 seconds. Gold futures are taking off this morning, up $14.10 points. I'm sorry, $14.30 now at $1,742.50 an ounce, right near the highs of the session of $1,747.80. Right now, silver is bullish and strong, up nearly 40 cents as we're trading near the highs of the session. Right now, we're at $18.36 per ounce. Overnight highs $18.40 per ounce. And yes, I am long, so therefore I am not wrong. Big hand clap for silver. Giddy up, silver. I love you, Silver. Thank you for paying me again. It's been a long time since you paid me, Silver, on the long side of the market. It's good to have you back, Silver. Very good to have you back. Now we can just get that bullish close and take this continuation pattern to even new heights coming in the next week. As long as silver can maintain this nice, strong, bullish close today, I think it's on and popping for next week. I think both gold and silver could have some bullish surprises for us going into next week, but we won't count our chickens before they hatch. Like Mama used to say, they might turn out to be buzzards. So let's go ahead and just be thankful for what the market's given us thus far, and let's see where we go from here. All right, U.S. dollar index is showing weakness this morning. It's down 16 pips at 98.22, far below par right now. All right, it's really giving it up on the downside. Looking at the euro, it's up 14 pips at 110.06. Pound sterling is off 5 pips at 123.39. Aussie dollar is down 11 pips at 66.48. Canadian dollar is up 3 pips at 137.68. The euro yen is up, 2 pips, up 2 pips at 119.21. The dollar yen is off 30 pips at 107.32. And the Kiwi is off 9 pips, and we're at 62.03. Looking at food, beans are off 4.5 points at 842 half. Corn is off by a half a cent at 327, and wheat is unchanged at 514 half. So there you have the overnight news that you can use. All right, full disclosure, I am holding some positions here. I am holding 2 shorts, short yen, short Canadian, long pound sterling, and long euro yen. Probably not gonna pan out on the on the others. I probably should have pivoted. I didn't pivot. I kind of let things ride on those first 3. The only one that's on and popping right now is the euro yen. The others are moving in the opposite direction. I think I should have tightened up my trigger, but I didn't. So we'll see what happens. I'll let it ride and see, and I'll update you later on. And currently still holding that long silver, still holding that short Russell, which I made my hustle. And right now, those are looking real nice as we take out the overnight lows in the stock index futures as trading to the downside is getting worse. All right. So I told you we had a lot to cover today, man. I told you. All right. So I have updated everything in the trading room, letting you know what I'm doing. So I just wanted to hit you with that. Let's see what else. All right. I see your comments. I see you. I see y'all going in already. Let's see here. Bill Gates should be aware of what unarmed protesters can do and think about what armed protesters can do. White people don't loot and burn cities. We come with our guns and a rope. All right, all right. And then another one say, yeah, ever since my 3rd treatment on the DRX 9000, I've been feeling a lot better. Still ain't out of the woods though. Well, hang in there, Sling. Let's see here. What else? All right. I heard his new residence is being doxxed online like nothing I've seen before. The mandatory corona vaccine agenda is dead now because of what they did in Minneapolis. Well, we're going to get into that and more this morning. Like I said, we had a lot to cover. It was boring. The week was pretty boring because it was a holiday week, coming into everything. And man, I thought today was just going to be one of them quickies, where I just tell everybody, hey, we had a pretty mixed week, but for the most part, looks like everyone's either on the break even or slightly profitable side. which is good. But you should definitely be more so on the profitable side. If you're short the stock indexes and long silver, you should be all right, or even long gold, you should be all right. All right, so let's go in. There's no particular order. We're just gonna go in. We're just gonna go in. All right, so here we go. There seems to be a mounting optimism that the U.S. economy will rebound relatively quickly as states begin opening up and there is progress toward a coronavirus vaccine. I will put that in parentheses. But the optimism ignores deep problems in the U.S. economy that existed before the pandemic. Chief among them, staggering levels of debt and the proliferation of zombie companies. Dun, dun, dun. In the last couple of years, corporate debt has blown through the roof, so much so that the Federal Reserve issued warnings about the increasing levels of corporate indebtedness late last year. Borrowing by business is historically high relative to gross domestic product, which is GDP, with the most rapid increase in debt concentrated among the riskiest and weak credit standards. So the riskiest firms are the ones that are really just ODing on debt. The government shutdowns in response to the COVID-19 have only exacerbated the problem. The Federal Reserve's prescription has been to encourage even more borrowing. Companies have obliged. I mean, if someone's handing out free money, you're going to go get whatever you can get, right? Well, as Bloomberg recently reported, many of the companies hardest hit by the coronavirus outbreak have priced billions of dollars of bonds and loans in recent weeks. Never mind that profits have been wiped completely out and that their business operations aren't viable right now or likely anytime soon. As long as they're propped up by the Fed, investors are willing to lend. It sounds absolutely ludicrous. Let's just do the knowledge to this right quick. All right, let's do some basic mathematics. Okay, so you and we'll use ourselves, Joe and Jane Public, as an example. Okay, so I have an idea for a lemonade stand. All right, my lemonade is going to be different than everyone else's because I'm going to put a secret special ingredient in my lemonade. It's a trade secret. You don't need to know what that is. I couldn't tell you anyway because if I did, I had the key, right? So I go to my local bank and say, look here, I got the slickest idea for a lemonade stand that has ever existed, and I got a secret family recipe, and I brought you a taste of it. The banker tastes my lemonade and says, this is the most delicious lemonade I've ever tasted. How much money do you need to get started? I say, yo, man, you ain't gonna believe this, but I think I can get by with 50,000. Give me 50 large right now. The banker says, you got it. No problem. All right. 6 months later, I go back to the bank. I say, look at here. That 50 large you gave me, yeah, I kicked things off pretty good. Things were going good for about 4, 5, maybe 6 days. And then and he says, you mean weeks? I said, no, days, 4, 5, 6 days. And then my sales plummeted. So right now, I know I borrowed 50,000 from you. I owe you 50,000, but I'm $250,000 in debt now. I'm still selling lemonade though. I'm selling like I'm averaging 1, 2, maybe 3 servings per month. You mean you're only selling 3 cups of lemonade a month? Yes. How much are your lemonades? They're $1 lemonade. So you're making $3 a month? Yes. And how many employees do you have? I have 10. And how much are you paying them an hour? I pay them $10 an hour. I see. And how much are you in debt? I'm in debt 250 large. So I'm gonna need to borrow. I think I can get by with 500,000. If you give me 500,000, that'll give me the cushion I need. I can buy some more product and I can expand my enterprise. The banker looks at me and says, "You got a deal." Psych. He says, "Get out of my office before I call security." That's what would happen in real life if you or I went into our bank with the underlying scenario that I just mentioned. So if mathematics is what it is, rules of accounting are what they are, why is it different for Fortune 500 companies? Why is it different for the governments of the world? If you and I only make $1,000 a month, but our monthly expenses is $5,000 a month, our bank would never lend us any money. You can't, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to work with you with a 60% debt to income ratio. You out of your mind. So this is what happens. The government, though, can keep borrowing for infinity. And big Fortune 500 companies get to borrow infinity. No limit. But how? If the same rules apply to us, why don't they apply to the Fortune 500 company? Why don't they apply to the federal governments of the world? Again, if a country's GDP, let's say a country's income, including taxes and their exports and all that stuff, is $1 billion a year for we'll just use that number, right? The country generates $1 billion a year in income, right? But it's borrowing $40 quadrillion in debt. That's what we would call unsustainable. If Mary Lou Homemaker, if her husband brings home $5,000 a month, but their monthly expenses is $20,000 a month, we would call that couple bankrupt. We would say that family is bankrupt and that family is about to go live on the street. So how come the same rules don't apply to a failed company? If a Fortune 500 company is ran terribly, has a whack product, has whack customer service, has whack pricing, treats their employees whack, the bathrooms are nasty, the working environment and conditions is nasty, the management is whack, doesn't that company deserve to go under no matter how many employees they have? So where do you see too big to fail in the U.S. Constitution? Where do you see too big to fail in principles of accounting? Was that on the CPA exam? I think not. So you're making up these new things now? You see, you got to do the knowledge to this stuff. This ain't right. It don't make no sense. It is what we call foolishness, nonsense. All right? Hey, shh, you're not supposed to be snitching on here, man. You know the feds is listening. Shh, don't say nothing, man. Come on, man. They don't know about that hustle, all right? You trying to get me hot up on here, man. Don't blow up the spot. All right, analysts say net corporate debt issuance could approach as much as $1 trillion this year. They make $1 billion, but the debt is $1 trillion. You failed your math exam. Are you kidding me? And according to Bloomberg, creditors are also waiving or loosening financial markets on existing debt, allowing companies to kick payments on current debt down the road. You won't let Molly Homemaker do that. You won't let her do a forbearance on her mortgage. No, you're saying you're coming to get the property. So why are you allowing the zombie company to continue to operate? They're not making no money. Everything about the company is whiz-act, but yet you are giving it even more money. But I couldn't get no money for my lemonade stand, even though I only make $3 a month and I got 10 employees. You won't give me no more money. I wonder why. Is it because you're racist, or is it because my business model sucks? This raises the specter of defaults and bankruptcies in the future. Howard Marks, co-chairman of Oak Tree Capital Group, told Bloomberg TV that there will be plenty of debt defaults and bankruptcies when corporate borrowers start running out of cash in the months ahead. There are large, highly levered companies and investment vehicles that the government and Fed rescue program is not likely to reach and take care of. Even the companies that do get taken care of may well find themselves in dire straits when the debt payments come due. It's the march of the zombie companies, or shall we say, the zombie apocalypse. Is this what the CDC warned us about years ago when on their website they were warning people about the zombie apocalypse? A zombie company's operating profits cannot cover even the interest payments on its debts, much less repay the principal. According to the Bank of International Settlements, the number of zombie companies was already above pre-2008 crisis levels in the spring of 2018. Wow! Did you hear that? The number of zombie companies was already above pre-2008 crisis levels in the spring of 2018. This is 2 years ago. We were already blowing up the spot 2 years ago. Why did you allow this to go on? Whoever did, man, we need to bring back, those kind of laws that people who do this kind of fiscal mismanagement most likely should be taken care of, if you know what I'm talking about. Put on trial. This has important implications for the labor market. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs to the tune of 50 million in the last 9 weeks. 50 million people in the last 9 weeks. That's almost an average people, 5 million people a week. 5 million people a week. Even with optimism about the economy opening up, companies have continued to shed jobs. Another 2.4 million Americans filed jobless claims last week. In just 9 weeks, 38.6 million people have filed for initial unemployment aid, but we got 50 million unemployed. That's 23.7% of the March U.S. labor force. My man Peter Schiff asked the operative question during a recent podcast. Why are we still losing millions of jobs if we're close to turning the economy back on? Wouldn't some of these companies be getting a jump on it? Wouldn't they be bringing back some of their workers or at least stop laying them off? The fact that we can still keep losing jobs by the millions, not hundreds, not thousands, but millions in the span of a week, excuse me, just shows you that we've got a lot more to this downturn than people think. And when these zombie companies start going under, it will mean even more lost jobs. According to CNBC report, based on the data from Arbor Research, zombie companies control more than 2 million jobs. That's right. And there's a breakdown for this. Total employee headcount among zombie companies, those that are still operating but unable to pay off debt in an industry, top 10 industries shown. Industrial conglomerates, 233,000. Hardware, storage, and peripherals, 193,000. Energy, equipment, and services, 185,000. Hotels, restaurants, and leisure, 153,000. Software, 142,000. Auto components, 103,000. Food products, 78,000. IT services, 76,000. Road and rail, 65,000. Specialty retail, 64,000. Despite the fact that many of these companies were already leveraged to the hilt, the coronavirus crisis has made it easier for them to take on even more debt. As a result, their stock prices have rebounded aggressively. Well, there's a saying that a fool and his money shall soon part, and that's what's about to happen. This hints at the disconnect between the stock market and the actual economy. I told you that last night. The stock market and the economy have been divorced and or legally separated for decades now. and they only show up to events together, but they leave in separate vehicles. All right, you need to know that. Okay, straight up. And that's the opening bell for those that need to go handle some business in these markets. This hints at the disconnect between the stock market and the actual economy. These companies are no sound, but investors assume they will be fine because of the central bank is backstopping them. According to CNBC, were it not for the Fed, a lot of these companies would have shuttered already. Even if the massive Fed intervention keeps some of the zombies alive, some analysts think it will still put a drag on the economy. Deutsche Bank's Torsten Sloke told Bloomberg, the Fed and the government are interfering in the process of creative destruction. And he warned that it could weigh on the overall potential for growth of the economy on productivity. You are misallocating capital to businesses that are not productive, and in some sense, taking resources away from companies that have high growth. I agree with that. The bottom line is that the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government are playing a massive game of kick the can down the road. The zombies will limp along for a while, but eventually many will succumb to the inevitable and go belly up, just like a goldfish. That means more job losses and even bigger drag on struggling economies. The scenario was already in the cards. Coronavirus has sped up the process. I could not agree more. Wake up, people. Wake up. Because the destruction cometh. Winter is not coming. Winter is already here. And you need to understand that. All right, so like I said, we got a lot to talk about. All right, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the things that need to be talked about, no matter how trivial it may seem. Everything we're going to talk about today can, will, and does have a profound impact on the markets going forward. I cannot stress this enough to you. Go get a cup of coffee if you need to do it. Hopefully you're sitting down in a comfortable chair because it's going to be a bumpy ride. We got more to cover. We got more to deal with. We cannot ignore these things that are before our eyes. We got to do it. All right, put on your big boy pants and your big girl panties and get ready. Get ready to rumble because it's going to be a bumpy ride. All right, this is what it is, people. This is what it is. And yes, Magda, the dollar is not as strong as it appears. Hyperinflation is not only coming, it's already showing its head in certain sectors. Yep. For those that are familiar with the Sesame Street 2 aliens, yep. That is exactly what's happening right now. Flash Gordon, yeah, man. I remember going to see that movie back in the day. I remember that. Yep. All right, what's that manga? Germany, China, and Russia will be the largest stable economies in the future. The United States, France, and Italy will join the zombies. Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, they already are zombies. All right, here is some more info that you got to deal with. CNN crew arrested while covering Minneapolis riots. That's right, folks. For those that are unaware, like I was, we have riots going on in America right now. There is a big riot in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Millions of Americans feel like the country is drifting precariously close to the point where social cohesion unravels. What's the Minneapolis PD solution? Arrest a team of journalists live on air. Well, no, the use of the term journalists, we can use that very loosely when it comes to CNN, which is the granddaddy of fake news. The same police department that hired the officer who cruelly and arbitrarily murdered George Floyd has responded to the intensifying media coverage of the riots that are now beginning to spread across the U.S. with what some might describe as Stalinist tactics. CNN tweeted a photo of reporter Omar Jimenez being taken into custody in the middle of the live report. The video was captured by the crew while they were being arrested. The CNN crew was arrested while giving a live television report in Minneapolis, where the crew was covering ongoing protests over the death of George Floyd. They had clearly identified themselves as press, which is probably why they were arrested for impersonating press. According to CNN, police told the crew they were being detained because they were told to move and didn't. One member of the CNN crew relayed to the network in a statement. The network accused the police of arresting the men for doing their jobs. No, they were arrested for pretending to impersonate real reporters. All right, let's deal with that. Can we first deal with that? Jimenez could be seen holding his CNN badge while reporting, identifying himself as a reporter. He could be heard telling the officers that they would move wherever the police needed them, while also making it clear that he was in the middle of a live report. An officer gripped his arm as Jimenez talked, then put him in handcuffs. We can move back to where you like. We are live on the air here. Put us back where you want us. We're getting out of your way. Wherever you want us, we'll get out of your way, Jimenez said. We were just getting out of your way when you were advancing through the intersection, Jimenez said. CNN's Josh Campbell was nearby but was allowed to remain. I identified myself, they said. Okay, you're permitted to be in the area, recounted Campbell, who is white. I was treated much differently than Jimenez was. First of all, there's no such nationality or group of people called white. You can say he is Caucasian, but that does not even really describe him, because we have run the spectrum of those that have excess melanin and those that have very little melanin in their skin in just about every geography on the planet. You have dark skin and light skin classes of nationalities all over the planet. All right. It's just what it is. So to say white, that does not say what his nationality is. All right. Is he European? Is he French? Is he Spanish? Is he German? You know, it goes on and on. So just saying that is ridiculous. That's not a proper identifier. All right. Now you can say that, okay, this was done because he did not have excess melanin in his body, in his DNA. So you can say, okay, he was a non-melanated person. I wasn't arrested because I'm a non-melanated person, and the ignorance that was around here at the time being was prejudice against people that were more melanated than me, which is profound ignorance. Jimenez and the crew had been reporting from the site, which was near a police precinct that was burned down by protesters overnight. Here it had nothing to do with melanation. It was about CNN being fake news, and finally the chicken's coming home to roost, and the police was like, you ain't really doing the reporting. You guys lie so much we can't believe you when you are telling the truth, and we have no way to know when you are telling the truth. So get on with them here, is what the police basically was saying to him. All right? I'm just saying. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. This had nothing to do with nationality. It had to do with CNN. Did you hear of any other news agency that was down there being arrested? Yes or no? Yes or no? Name me the other news out agency that was down there on the site, because CNN was not the only one covering that. There were reporters from all over the world, I'm sure of it. So why weren't they arrested? Why was only CNN arrested? Because CNN is fake news. I'm trying to tell y'all. I'm trying to put you on game. Listen what Bruck Man speak to you, all right? Bruck Man, fifth floor. Twitter tags Trump tweet on Minneapolis riots with glorifying violence warning. All right, this lets you know what's going on behind the scenes. Are we seeing more infighting? Are the powers that be angry because they don't like Trump? And so they have these social media conglomerates in their back pocket, and they can use them anytime they feel like it, even to attack and harass the president of the United States. Were they sending him a signal? Look, you don't control this over here. We'll do whatever we want to do. We control this platform. Broham, what you gonna do about it? Nothing. So go sit down somewhere. But see, that's what they think. See, they weren't thinking clearly when they did this. They forgot that he is still the commander in chief of the armed forces. They forgot that he is the president of the United States of Captain America. All right. Trump has responded to Twitter's latest tag accusing the company of doing nothing to censor Chinese officials and members of the radical left, which is why Trump insisted Section 230 should no longer apply to the company. See, you guys, for every action, there is a reaction. All right? Twitter is doing nothing about all of the lies and propaganda being put out by China or the radical left Democrat Party. They have targeted Republicans, conservatives, and the President of the United States. Section 230 should be revoked by Congress. Until then, it will be regulated, the President replied. As we wait for the first of the inevitable flood of lawsuits challenging Trump's latest executive order, Twitter has continued with its new policy of affixing warning labels on certain tweets from the president that violate the company's community standards. Just this morning, Twitter affixed a glorifying violence warning to a Trump tweet decrying the outburst of violence in Minneapolis in retaliation for the brutal slaying of George Floyd. We have placed a public interest notice on this tweet from Donald Trump. And the tweet said, "These thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way, any difficulty, and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you." First of all, that is not glorifying violence. You see the twisted chemical imbalance in the brain of certain individuals in the West. How is the president doing his job and encouraging the governor to do his job, glorifying violence? Really? You see how they pick and choose and twist facts and separate facts from truth? All right, you see what I'm saying? Not all facts are truth. All right? The situation here is looting. Property rights are the holy grail of the Constitution. Property rights, personal property rights. You do not have the right to infringe on the personal property rights of another. That includes their place of business. You, as a citizen, do not have the right to smash my windows out of my storefront with a hammer. You do not have the right to run up in my spot and take out all of my inventory that I paid for with my money. You do not have a right to do that because you are angry, mad, upset, or frustrated with your establishment, your elected government officials, because you're mad at the state that you live in, or you're mad at the country in which you reside. That does not give you a right to go and destroy another man's property. All right? Just like stand your ground. If a dude runs up in my spot looking to do violence to me and my family, I have a right as the man of my house to defend my wife and children with my own, even with my own life. And if someone comes up in my spot, I'm going to have to take his life. You're not gonna run up in my spot and rape my wife and daughters in front of my face, and I just stand there and do nothing. You're not gonna come up in there and smash the windows out of my house and do damage to my personal property, and I don't do nothing about it. Nah, you about to get shot. Now you can call that whatever you want to call it. You can say that's glorifying violence, whatever. Call it whatever you want. But the truth of the matter is that is not only the fact of the situation, it's also the truth of the situation. Now, what Twitter is doing is political. They're politicizing a comment made by the president. They are politicizing statements made by the president, picking and choosing. I didn't see them attach glorifying violence labels on the reports that were coming in about the violence going on in Minneapolis. I did not see them flag the fact that people may be looting, all right, and destroying property as glorifying violence. Glorifying violence is violent. Violence in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. All right. Violence can take two different avenues. It can be righteous or it can be unrighteous. Violence in and of itself is neither good nor bad, right nor wrong. It depends on the context. Like I said, do run up in your spot looking to rape your wife and daughters and do damage to your property. You have a right to enact violence against that trespass. All right. Armed man runs up in your spot. You need to enact violence. All right. That is righteous violence. Not violence for the sake of violence, but violence because you need to protect the life of someone else and yourself and property. Looting is not only wrong and illegal, it's also immoral because it's theft. And in most cases, it also involves violence. So why aren't you calling the looters glorifying violence? Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to call me Uncle Tom. You're going to call me all these names and say, don't you dare that the black man was basically executed by the police, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's break this down. Again, we're dealing with facts versus truth. Was the police department wrong in the murder of an unarmed citizen? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Murder in any context is wrong. Killing, on the other hand, is neither wrong nor right, good nor bad, evil nor moral or immoral. It depends on the context in which life is being taken. Once again, the armed man is running up in your spot looking to rape your wife and your daughters. You pull out the firearm and you peel his wig back. All right. That was a violent act. You also killed. You did not murder. Murder entails the taking of an innocent life, while killing is taking the life of the guilty in that context. You understand what I'm saying to you? In that regard, capital punishment is not immoral or wrong. All right. Again, context. If an innocent man is on death row, that is immoral and wrong. All right, because now that equates murder because you're taking the life of an innocent. He didn't do it. All right. If you wrongly, excuse me, administer that punishment and you do it arbitrarily, people who should be getting it, you don't give it to them. But people who should get it, you don't give it to them. So people who should get it, they don't get it. The people who shouldn't necessarily get it, you give it to them. All right. You don't use it arbitrarily. You use it righteously or you don't. You see what I'm saying? So yes, it can become immoral, but taking of a life is not necessarily immoral. Now, if this situation was different, if the dude was armed and he was looting and causing violence and upheaval, and was asked to drop his weapon, and he was like, nah, and he started bucking back at the cops, and the cops shot and killed him. Technically speaking, the officer was doing his job. He was protecting life and property. And the other person on that other end of that other gun was considered a villain at that point, all right, an outlaw. All right, so again, it comes down to context, okay? If a cop murders an unarmed man or a man who is surrendering, the cop is wrong. You see me lay down my weapon, I lay down on the ground, interlock my fingers behind the back of my head, spread my legs the whole nine. I'm complying, and then the cop walks up to me and blows my head off. Well, you know what? The cop just murdered an innocent man in that regard, in that context. All right, see what I'm saying? So there, you got to put things in context. So, all right, the police execute an innocent man. Let's say that's a fact and it's a truth. They murdered this man. That does not give the citizenry the right to go and riot and destroy property. That is not what you do. All right, and I'm not glorifying violence. We're just having a conversation here. I'm not telling anyone to go do anything. I'm just talking. I have a right to talk. I'm not telling people that they should go out and be vigilantes. I'm not saying none of that. I'm just talking truth and facts. All right, we gotta break stuff down. Now, what could have happened, if you really want to be technical about it, is citizenry witnessed a cop execute an unarmed innocent man. Now, if the crowd would have been like, okay, since you executed him, we're going to execute you now. I can't say that that's wrong. Because first of all, the cop murdered someone. So if the people put him on trial and hang him, that's just. That's justice in that situation. You understand what I'm saying? But not going and tearing down your own community, burning up your own neighborhood, burning your own house to the ground. What kind of sense does that make? Now, I have heard the argument, you don't get to tell me how to emote, how to be angry. You're right. I don't get to tell you nothing. But again, there's consequences and repercussions and ramifications as well for your actions that you take as an adult. If you're mad at the situation, and let's say it is a righteous indignation because you've seen an injustice done before you, there are other avenues that you can go that don't involve acting like a clown. All right? So you see an innocent man get murdered, and your reaction is to go burn down a building? Really? You see how stupid that sounds? So again, mixing and matching things inappropriately is what we have here. They did not tag the incident as glorifying violence as far as the looters. They only tagged the president's response to it. The president is only saying, yo, governor, I got your back because you need to restore law and order. Do what you got to do within the confines of the law. And I, as the president of the United States, I got your back. This has nothing to do with racism. Excuse me. All right. This has to do with law. The cop murdered an innocent man. The cop should face justice. He should be arrested and put on trial for the murder of an innocent person. He should not be shielded by the boys in blue from the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood should shun him in this situation. You understand what I'm saying? If you can report on news, report the news correctly, fully, and completely. Don't take sides and have these alternative motives. All right, because that's what Twitter is doing in this situation. All right, so you got to do the knowledge to this stuff. All right, and looting is not what you do. That's not what you do. All right. And really, how can you really get mad in this? I mean, if you really want to break things down, how can you be mad at something that you yourself have allowed? All right, you allowed this. You allow this. You guys don't protest things until it's too late. Why are you voting the same sheriff in office? Why are you voting the same governors in office over and over and over and over and over again? If you think he's a racist and shouldn't be in office, why you keep putting him in office? Why? If the local police department is bugging, why aren't you calling for the removal of the head of the police department? You see what I'm saying? There are things that you can do, actions that you can take, legal actions within the parameters of the law to prevent this thing from happening. You want to be you want to go and play defense after the fact when you should have took offense before the fact. You can't be mad, ladies and gentlemen, about things that you allow. You allow crooked institutions to exist when you keep voting for the same people that back those institutions. So if you believe that the Minneapolis Police Department is immoral and corrupt and racist, why are you allowing for it to exist in the first place? The mayor, the governor, and the chief of police, all of their jobs should be on the line. You should get them out of office. I know the chief of police is not necessarily an elected position. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think it is, but maybe I'm wrong. But if it is, he shouldn't be there. You should vote him out. The citizens can really push against that. You can even file lawsuits against the police department asking for the removal of dude. There's a lot of things you can do. You can organize as a people. All right. What if all of Minneapolis comes together? If all of Minneapolis came together, they could fight and win if they do it the right way. All you have to do, the simple thing is to vote the bums out of office. You think they're bums, you think they're immoral, you think they're racist, get it. Why are they still in office? Got the same governor in office for like 50 years. And every year you say what a racist prick he is, but you keep voting him in office. So I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear it. This whole news story is whack. It's whack. Also, again, it's cherry picking. Now, is it wrong? Yes. Should the officer be put in prison and be put on death row or face life in prison? Abso-freaking-lutely. However, you can't really cry about what you guys have allowed to go on down there in Minnesota according to your own outrage. That's all I'm saying. All right? That's all I'm saying. Vote the bums out of office. Do something. All right? Do something. This is not the time for violence. If you want to be violent when it comes to the voting day. Go into the voting booth and be violent. All right? Vote the bums out of office. If you think they're bums, vote them out of office. That's all I'm saying. You people are slipping. You're allowing injustices to continue to happen, and then you want to complain about it. That is the height of foolishness. Do something about it. It's all I am saying. And Twitter being used as a political pundit. No, you know what? Social media should not have those particular rights to be immune. Not if they're doing the government's bidding. If Twitter is acting on behalf of the Democratic National Convention, then yeah, they should not enjoy immunity. Yeah. So this is the stuff I'm talking about. What the president has just done is what I'm saying the people should have done a long time ago. See, I didn't know about the immunity thing. Had that been never allowed to exist in the first place, we wouldn't have had all the censorship. You see what I'm saying? But no, this is what happens. This is what happens, folks. I hope you're really paying attention to what is going on here, okay? I'm just saying, do what you got to do. All right, and I think the president removing the nice barrier of protection is good because they're now taking a political stance. All right, so this is what you need to do. If you're going to do that, then yeah, let them be liable and let the lawsuits start coming in against Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. Let the lawsuits fly. Why should they be immune to lawsuits if no one else is? If everyone is held accountable, then we don't have a problem. It's when you start removing the accountability from corporations that when we start running into these problems. And while you're at it, you need to clean house. You need to remove the hedge of protection from the vaccine companies as well. Let them be held financially liable for vaccine damage. All right, let's do that. Let's go there while we're at it. No corporation should be protected by the government. It's a private entity. The government should never be in bed with private corporations. I'm sorry. But then that takes us down another slippery rabbit hole of government should not be as enormous as it is anyway. It should be very small because it has a very set standard that it's supposed to be carried out. It's not in the business of making money. The federal government is not in the business of making money. It's not in the business of enterprise. It's not in the business of bailing out corporations. It's not in the business of any of that stuff. We as a people created this juggernaut monster. And the only way to get rid of it is to change it. And the only way you change it is with your vote. I'm just saying, moving on. All right, so the word on the street is people are a little nervous about some things that's going on other than Minneapolis. People are starting to be concerned. Now, this right here is for your stackers. This is for the stackers. All right, this is for the gold and silver stackers. You need to listen to this one because this right here should wake some of you up who have been sleeping and who have been hustling backwards. You know the old saying, if you don't hold it, you don't own it, right? When it comes to gold and silver, we're talking about the physicals now. All right, so, hold on. Michigan final May consumer sentiment at 72.3, the estimate was 74. Wow, consumer sentiment is lower than expected. That is always a bearish sign in these markets. Whoa, so we'll see what happens on this Take Back Friday. All right, U.S. gold confiscation. U.S. gold confiscation is back in discussion. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Will gold be confiscated? Yes, of course. That's the answer. End of article. Yes. Desperate governments will take desperate actions. And as the world economy is now slumping into a hyperinflationary depression, unlimited money printing will cause currencies to collapse, leading to a surge in the gold price measured in worthless paper money. So the first question we must ask is, why will governments punish prudent savers who have taken protection in gold against the irresponsible mismanagement of the economy and the currency? Flashback, April the 5th, 1933. Under executive order of the president, issued April 5th, 1933, all persons are required to deliver on or before May 1st, 1933, all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates now owned by them to a Federal Reserve Bank branch or agency or to any member bank of the Federal Reserve System. Notice it didn't say bring it to the Department of Treasury. Excuse me. It didn't say bring it to the Treasury. It said bring it to the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a private corporate entity. So this was not a government thing. History has reported this wrong. This is a Federal Reserve thing. The Federal Reserve twisted the arm of the president and said, we want all the gold because we are going to take care of you in the future. A private corporation, the government made a law that every American citizen is to bring their gold and give it to a private corporation under an executive order. Let that marinate for a minute. See, there's a difference between facts and truth. That was not a government thing. That was a private corporation thing. The U.S. government used the power of its military force to coerce and threaten American citizens to give their gold to a private corporation under the threat of violence. That is the truth of that history. Global financial assets. Gold is about 0.5% of global assets. Global financial assets are estimated by Credit Suisse to be about $360 trillion. Of course, of that, stocks are about 85 trillion or 24%. The global bond markets is about 100 trillion or 28% of that. Investment gold is around 35,000 tons or about $1.9 trillion. This represents a mere 0.5% of global financial assets. With investment gold representing 0.5% of global assets, while stocks are 24%, you can ask why the U.S. government are doing all they can to drive up the value of stocks by printing money and at the same time suppressing the price of gold. Why are shareholders supported? To become rich while gold holders are penalized. Governments are clearly supporting ever higher stock since the buy. Excuse me, get some water, man. Keep clearing my throat. All right. So with the U.S. government, instead of encouraging thrift and prudent wealth preservation in the form of gold, confiscate the savings of the Americans? Well, some observers like Jim St. Clair, Mr. Gold, thinks this is possible also for U.S. gold mines. He does believe, though, that coins of the realm like eagles would be excluded. I don't think so. If the government's going to go in, they're going to go in. And they're going to go full bore. They're not going to just pick and choose like that. They're going to take it all. All right? And those are just facts. Okay? So get ready. Now, you may think, nah, nothing like, we're not even down that road yet. We ain't that far down the rabbit hole. Oh, really? Is that what you think? That's what you think? Okay. All right. How about this then? UK uses feudal system law to seize 150 million pounds from bank accounts. You heard it right. I did not stutter. During the summer of 1215 in a riverfront meadow near London, some of England's top barons gathered to confront King John and force him to sign a contract guaranteeing their rights and freedoms. The contract became known as the Magna Carta. And one of its key provisions, number 43, gave the baron protection against something called, escat or esciat, however you say that. In medieval terms, that word referred to the property being forcibly passed to the king if its original owner died without heirs. So if a baron passed away without a son, his domain would pass to back to the crown, back to the king, right? Over time, kings vastly expanded the use of this. Anyone convicted of a crime would have their property seized under this law. Occasionally, someone's son or daughter could be pressed into servitude by this law. It was like a medieval version of civil asset forfeiture. The king took whatever he wanted for any reason, and people had no rights. By 1215, England's noblemen were sick and tired of it, and they successfully forced King John to sign the Magna Carta. Unfortunately, for the other 99.9% of England's population, most of the Magna Carta's guarantees only applied to barons and other noblemen. Plain old regular serfs still had their meager property plundered by the king and by the noblemen themselves, who had just fought to preserve their own rights at the expense of everyone else's. So if a feudal serf in England died without an heir or was convicted of a crime, all his property was given to the local lord or to the king. This became such big business in England that the government appointed special agents called escutors in every single English country to oversee property confiscation every time someone passed away. If there was any doubt at all whether or not the deceased had valid heirs, the escutor would seize the property immediately. Amazingly, though, this ridiculous feudal custom still exists, and not just in England, in many countries around the world. In just about every state in the land of the free, for example, the United States of America, your possessions, real estate, etc., are forfeited to the government if you die without an heir. Did you know that, ladies and gentlemen? Even bank accounts that are left dormant for some period of time, usually a few years, can be confiscated by the US government. But this is totally bizarre because dormant bank account rules can be incredibly loose. In many jurisdictions, for example, simply having some savings stashed away in a bank account that doesn't have any other activity can put your funds at risk of being seized. Did you know that? They actually still use the same word, esciat. So money in dormant bank accounts is esciated to the state. To be fair, this practice has been relatively rare until COVID-19. But now governments are starting to look at every source of funding they can to get their hands on your money, including the medieval ones. The British, so hey, talk about going medieval on somebody. The British government recently announced that they had unlocked 150 million pounds from dormant bank accounts with cooperation from some of the biggest banks in the UK, all to help fight World War COVID. And now the UK is looking to expand the practice beyond bank accounts. They like to be able to seize unclaimed financial assets, including stocks and bonds, insurance proceeds, and even dormant pension accounts. As one UK government official put it, I look forward to the potentially millions more we can unlock for good causes through expanding the dormant asset scheme. Noticing it is a scheme. This is a practice that literally dates back to the feudal system, and it reinforces a simple truth. You don't really own anything if the government has authority to take it. Once again, you don't really own anything if the government has the authority to take it. I have no doubt the bureaucrats who came up with this idea have very good intentions. Right. Psych. After all, what nobler cause is there in this bizarre world of ours but to wage an endless crusade against the coronavirus, no matter the cost? They're willing to do whatever it takes, spend whatever it takes, print as much money as it takes, and yes, even confiscate people's private property to rid the world of this virus. This is our new reality. Medieval serfdom. I'm telling you guys, I'm telling you right now, we are living in perilous times. Absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Think about what you just heard. Think about it. Yeah. We're living in the land of the bugging, home of the bonkers. Straight up. This is crazy, man. It's ridiculous. From 9/11 to COVID-19, it's been a perpetual state of emergency. The fundamental political question is, why do people obey a government? The answer is that they tend to enslave themselves, to let themselves be governed by tyrants. Freedom from servitude comes not from violent action, but from the refusal to serve. All right? The refusal to serve. Tyrants fall when the people withdraw their support. Don't pity this year's crop of graduates because the COVID-19 pandemic caused them to miss out on the antics of their senior year and the pomp and circumstance of graduation. Pity them because they have spent their entire lives in a state of emergency. They have spent their entire lives in a state of emergency. They were born in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, raised without any expectation of privacy, in a technologically driven mass surveillance state, educated in schools that teach conformity and compliance and propaganda, saddled with a debt-ridden economy on the brink of implosion, made vulnerable by the blowback from a military empire constantly waging war against shadowy enemies, both foreign and domestic, both real and imaginary. Policed by government agents armed to the teeth, ready and able to lock down the country at a moment's notice, and forced to march in lockstep with a government that no longer exists to serve the people, but which demands they be obedient slaves or suffer the consequences of violent ramifications and repercussions. It's a dismal start to life, is it not? Unfortunately, we who should have known better failed to maintain our freedoms or provide our young people with the tools necessary to survive, let alone succeed, in the impersonal jungle that is modern America. We brought them into homes fractured by divorce, distracted by mindless entertainment, and obsessed with the pursuit of materialism. We institutionalized them in daycares and after school programs, substituted time with teachers and childcare workers for parental involvement. We turned them into test takers instead of thinkers, and automations instead of activists. We allowed them to languish in schools, which not only took to looking like prisons, but function like prisons as well, where conformity is the rule and freedom is the exception. We made them easy prey for our corporate overlords while instilling in them the values of a celebrity obsessed, technology driven culture devoid of any true spirituality. And we taught them to believe that the pursuit of their own personal happiness trumped all other virtues, including any empathy whatsoever for their fellow human beings. No, we haven't done this generation any favors. Given the current political climate and nationwide lockdown, things could only get worse. For those coming of age today, and for the rest of us who are muddling along through the dystopian nightmare, here are a few bits of advice that will hopefully help as we navigate the pearls ahead. Be an individual. For all of its claims to champion the individual, American culture advocates a stark conformity, which, as John F. Kennedy warned, is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. Worry less about fitting in with the rest of the world and instead, as Henry David Thoreau urged, become a Columbus to whole new continents and worlds within you, opening new channels, not of trade, but of thought, end quote. I wouldn't have used Columbus, I would have used another figure. Learn your rights. We're losing our freedoms for one simple reason. Most of us don't know anything about our freedoms. At a minimum, anyone who has graduated from high school, let alone college, should know the Bill of Rights backwards and forwards. However, the average person, let alone citizen, has very little knowledge of their rights for the simple reason that the schools no longer teach them. So grab a copy of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and study them at home. And when the time comes, stand up for your rights before it's too late. Unfortunately, it's already too late. So sorry to have to tell you that and be the bearer of bad news. Speak truth to power. Don't be naive about those in positions of authority. As James Madison, who wrote our Bill of Rights, observed, quote, all men having power ought to be distrusted. We must learn the lessons of history. People in power more often than not abuse that power. To maintain our freedoms, this will mean challenging government officials whenever they exceed the bounds of their office, end quote. Resist all things that numb you. Don't measure your worth by what you own or earn. Likewise, don't become mindless consumers unaware of the world around you. Resist all things that numb you, put you to sleep, or help you cope with so-called reality. Those who establish the rules and laws that govern society's actions desire compliant subjects. However, as George Orwell warned, quote, until they become conscious, they will never rebel. And until they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious, end quote. It is these conscious individuals who change the world for the better. Don't let technology turn you into zombies. Technology anesthetizes to all the two real tragedies that surround us. Yeah, you don't want to be anesthetized, folks. Techno gadgets are merely distractions from what really going on in America and around the world. As a result, we've begun mimicking the inhuman technology that surrounds us and have lost our humanity. We've become sleepwalkers. If you're going to make a difference in the world, you're going to have to pull the earbuds out, turn off the cell phones, and spend much less time viewing screens. Help others. We all have a calling in life, and I believe it boils down to one thing. You are here on this planet to help other people. In fact, none of us can exist very long without help from others. If we're going to see any positive change from freedom, then we must change our view of what it means to be human and regain a sense of what it means to love and help one another. That will mean gaining the courage to stand up for the oppressed. That's why PulseWave trading exists. We want to help as many people as possible. We can turn the tide. We can do this. Think about it. Their goal is to impoverish the world. The 1% has decided that they have a right to all the wealth. I say nonsense. The wealth belongs to the people. So learn how to use the PulseWave price trigger report for all it's worth. And go to pulsewavetrading.com and learn how to do that. You don't have to be a serf and a slave to the powers that be. You can revolt right now. Refuse to remain silent in the face of evil. Throughout history, individuals or groups of individuals have risen up to challenge the injustices of their age. Nazi Germany had its Dietrich Bonhoeffer. The gulags of the Soviet Union were challenged by Alexander Soltz something. America had its color-coded system of racial segregation and warmongering called out for what it was: blatant discrimination and profiteering by Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers and a whole bunch of other people. And then there was Jesus Christ, who not only was prophet, priest, and king, but is also the Son of God, i.e., the second person of the Godhead. An itinerant preacher and revolutionary activist. No, he was not. It's not why he came to earth. He came to earth to pay the price, to be the ultimate sacrifice, the propitiation of our sins, the sacrificial lamb. He came to earth to redeem the lost. He came to die on that cross for the elect of God. All right? Who not only died challenging the police state of his day, namely the Roman Empire. Not true at all. It's not true. That's not true. It wasn't the Roman Empire. It was the Jews. It was Judaism. It was the Sanhedrin. It was the, excuse me, it was the leaders of Judaism, not Rome. Not once did he speak out against Caesar or Pontius Pilate or any of that. He spoke out against the Sanhedrin. All right. He spoke out against the ruling body of the Jewish state, if you put it that way. All right. That's what he did. Okay. Let's break that down. If you want to tell it right, tell it right. He was not a revolutionary. He was not going to be against a police state. It was not a police state as we see police state today. The Jews were free to roam around and do what they wanted. As a matter of fact, Rome allowed the Jews to practice their religion. All right. And he allowed the ruling body within Judaism special privileges as well, which they enjoyed. They enjoyed having power over the people, not the Roman guards. I'm talking about the Jewish leaders. They enjoyed having power over their people. Go back and read your history. All right. Stop trying to make Jesus out of an activist and put him on the same level as Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or any other person you want to put up in there. Yes, he did come to the world as a man, but he is forever the God man, the theanthropos. Theo meaning God, pos meaning man. He is the God man forever. All right. He's God. Martin Luther King is not God. None of those other dudes are God. He was not an activist. The reason why he spoke the way he did to the leadership of Judaism is because they pretended to know the law, but they were not practicing the law. He called them whitewashed sepulchres for a reason. Because on the outside, it looks pretty, but on the inside, it was full of dead man's bones. He told them that they sought out new converts and made them twice a citizen of hell than they are. He spoke out against those dudes, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the members of the Sanhedrin. So if you really want to go there, but don't get it twisted. All right? It was not the Roman Empire that he had a problem with. It was the Jews. He did not go into the Roman council every day. He went into the synagogues. It wasn't the Roman council that threw him out. It was the synagogues that threw him out. It wasn't the Roman Empire that sought to execute him. It was the Sanhedrin, the ruling body of the Jews, that sought to kill him, not the Roman Empire. They used the Roman Empire to do their dirty work. The Roman Empire was just a government. They had no beef with Jesus. Pontius Pilate said, I find no fault in this man. All right. He said, I find no fault in this man. Stop blaming Rome for the execution and the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It was not Rome. It was the Jews. Once again, they said, we find no fault in this man. They were ready to release him. They said, who do you want us to release? Barabbas or this king of the Jews? And they were like, no, we will not have this man to rule over us. Give us Barabbas. Give us the activists. Give us the revolutionary. Barabbas was the activist, the revolutionary. That's who they wanted. All right? They didn't want Jesus. So if you're going to tell the story in this article correctly, tell it right. We don't half step here on this live stream. We go in. If we go in, we go all the way in, and we do it correctly. All right? And no, this was not a blueprint for civil disobedience. Jesus was not acting doing civil disobedience. All right? Rome did not have a problem with him. As far as they were concerned, he was an exemplary citizen. Tell the truth. He was not an activist, and he was not teaching civil disobedience, because that's not what he was doing. Let's deal with it. All right. Now, I know they're saying it was civil disobedience because he went against the law. But see, that's not true. He did not go against the law. Civil disobedience, in and of itself, it is organic means to buck up against unjust laws or laws that you deem to be unjust. Jesus did not debunk the law. He did not go up or buck up against the law, because the law in the Old Testament was the word of God. Jesus is and was the word of God come in the flesh. Why would he buck up against himself? Now, I know the smart aleck out there is going to say, well, yeah, because he healed on the Sabbath and you wasn't supposed to do no work on the Sabbath. Got you. And I would say to you, no, checkmate, you're done. You're out of here. Want to know why? He himself said, you do not understand the spirit of the law. He said, how many of you, if your ox fell over in the ditch, would pull him out on the Sabbath? Are you going to let him just lay there and die? Would you not rescue? I mean, he went in on him. He said, I'm not going against the law of the Sabbath. He said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Remember, he is the word. He is the scriptures. So he schooled them. See, what you don't realize is that they added their own laws to that. All right? You got to understand that. They had their Torah, and they had all these lists and additional things that they would do, like walk around with phylacteries all over their body and on their foreheads. God did not tell them to do that. But they figured we're going to go above and beyond what the words say. So no, he did not practice civil disobedience. Cut it out. Chill out. Chillax. It's okay. You got it wrong. You all right. You're going to be all right. All right, you're going to be all right. I'm just breaking it down for you because these parts of the article are off. They're wrong. Okay? And I don't blame the person who wrote it. I understand where he's trying to come from. But no. And it had nothing to do with moral courage. All right? He came here for a specific purpose, not to be a rebel, but to redeem man. Had he not come, everyone under the sound of my voice, myself included, would be doomed. All right? Do you understand that? Okay. Cultivate spirituality, reject materialism, and put people first. When the things that matter most have been subordinated to materialism, we have lost our moral compass. We must change our values to reflect something more meaningful than technology, materialism, and politics. Standing at the pulpit of the Riverside Church in New York City in April 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. urged his listeners, quote, "We as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motive, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered," end quote. Pitch in and do your part to make the world a better place. Don't rely on someone else to do the heavy lifting for you. Don't wait around for someone else to fix what ails you, your community, or nation. As Mahatma Gandhi urged, be the change you wish to see in the world. Stop waiting for political saviors to fix what is wrong with this country. Pause right here for a second. Okay, I noticed the flow of the article. They mentioned Martin Luther King. Now they're mentioning Mahatma Gandhi. All right, we got to deal with something here. We got to deal with it. We got to, I miss nothing. I don't just jump over stuff. Here we go. I know people like to talk about Gandhi and Martin Luther King. I am not a pacifist. I do not believe in passivity. I am not a pacifist. All right. Jesus was not a pacifist either. You need to chill with all of that. He was not a pacifist. Jesus Christ of Nazareth was not a pacifist. All right. Yahshua ben Yosef was not a pacifist. Do you remember in the garden when Peter whipped out his sword and cut the soldier's ear off? Jesus said, man, put that away. And then he healed the man's ear, put it back on and healed him. He said, don't you know, man, we're not here for that, right? That's not our purpose right now. But, if it was, don't you know I have command of all the legions of angels? I could call them at any moment and they would wipe everybody out. All right. God is not a pacifist. One of his titles is very warfarish, okay? The captain of the Lord of hosts. All right? Captain of the Lord of hosts. He is not a pacifist. God in no way, shape, or form is a pacifist. Jesus was not a pacifist. All right, there were times in the New Testament, in the four Gospels, when he told his disciples that they need to get their swords and get the strap. And if you want to put it in new terms, he told them to get the strap, bring the strap with you, because that road to Damascus was no joke back then. All right, it was like Brownsville, Brooklyn back in the day. All right, he said, "Yo, get the strap." All right, there was times when the disciples traveled and they had the gap. All right, so don't get it twisted. All right, don't even pretend like you don't know that or you didn't read that in your Bible. All right, okay. I'm just saying. If we're gonna go there, let's deal with it. Pacifism does not work, ladies and gentlemen. I am so sorry to tell you that. History is full of examples where pacifist communities were wiped out because they refused to fight or defend themselves. They were wiped out. Pacifism is not only wrong, but is also not intelligent. All right? No. There is a time for violence. Like I said earlier, there's a time for violence. Again, the armed man is breaking into your home and he wants to rape your wife and children. Are you just going to just sit passively by until he's finished and then ask him, would he like tea and crumpets to go with that? I don't think so. All right? Pacifism is not what wanted. I know they programmed you, they propagandized you in elementary and high school and told you that Gandhi was successful because he was a pacifist, that Martin Luther King was successful because he was a pacifist. And that's what won civil rights. No, 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 and no. Let's look at the truth and the facts of history. Martin Luther King was a pacifist, and he got smoked. So pacifism didn't work for him. Do you really want to go? They smoked Malcolm X, who was not a pacifist, and a pacifist who was Martin Luther King. They smoked both of them brothers. One was a pacifist, one wasn't. Pacifism is not what changed or turned the tide for civil rights. Had nothing to do with it. The government still could have said, we ain't giving in, we're not doing it, we don't care, do what you want. Segregation is here to stay. Miracle. But that's not what they did. It turned the tide because people had common sense and knew that it was the right thing to do, folks. Had nothing to do with the nonviolence. Same thing in Gandhi's situation. There were political things going on behind the scenes. And they realized, you know what, we could actually do a lot more by, giving the people their rights and voting and all that other stuff. Let's not get it twisted. All right? Moving on. Stop waiting for some political savior to swoop in and fix all that's wrong with this country. Stop allowing yourselves to be drawn into divisive party politics. Stop thinking of yourselves as members of a particular political party as opposed to citizens of the United States. Let me tell you something. First of all, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. I'm sorry. The independents of this country will always be the minority. At the end of the day, you are still left with a Republican or a Democrat at the ballot box. When's the last time you've seen a Democrat go up against a independent and those were the only two options you had to vote for president? Or the Republicans going up against the independent? No, it's always Republican and Democrat. That's it. That's your choice. All right? Most of all, stop looking away from the injustices and cruelties and endless acts of tyranny that have become hallmarks of American police state. Be vigilant and do your part to recalibrate the balance of power in favor of we the people. I said that earlier in this live. However, it is going to continue because things are going to get so bad. People will be looking for someone to rein things in and fix things, but we're not there yet. But unfortunately, it is going to come down to a person taking charge. I did warn you guys that, yeah, this old system is coming down, but the new one that springs up after it, you're not going to like. I did warn you about that. Say no to war. Well, we got to put that in its context. Not all war is bad. Not all war is bad. If you are minding your business, you haven't done any dirt overseas whatsoever. You haven't meddled in other countries' politics. You haven't sought to oust political leaders. You haven't assassinated political leaders. You haven't forced regime change by funding riots and all types of social discord in foreign countries. All you done was mind your business. And for no reason at all, we wake up one morning and find ourselves being attacked and invaded by a foreign power. Us saying, all right, this is war, is not a bad thing. Going to war in that situation is not a bad thing. We're being invaded. We haven't done anything to anybody. And the person that's invading us is a person that we thought was a friend. We ain't done nothing to them at all. Facts, right? Yeah, that right there, we need that. That is what you call holy war. Now we get to go to war. We're justified in going to war now because you invaded us and we ain't done nothing to you. All right? Straight up. However, the war that we have been engaged in forever now has been 100% unjust, unjustified, unholy war. And technically, it's been treasonous. It's been acts of war. against places that have done nothing to us. We're only at war because we want to take their national resources. Let's deal with it. Did not Jesus himself say, since the person brought him up in this article, did he not say the reason why human beings go to wars because you want something another person has that you can't have? He said that is the basis of all wars. You want something you can't have. End of discussion. And that's the truth. Addressing the graduates at excuse me, at Binghamton Central High School in 1968, at a time when the country was waging war on different fields, on different levels, and with different weapons, Twilight Zone creator Rod Serling declared, quote, "Too many wars are fought almost as if by rote. Too many wars are fought out of sloganery, out of battle hymns, out of aged, musty appeals to patriotism that went out with knighthood and moats. Love your country because it is eminently worthy of your affection. Respect it because it deserves your respect. Be loyal to it because it cannot survive without your loyalty. But do not accept the shedding of blood as a natural function or a prescribed way of history, even if history points this up by its repetition. That men die for causes does not necessarily sanctify that cause. And that men are maimed and torn to pieces every 15 to 20 years does not immoralize or deify the act of war. Find another means that does not come with the killing of your fellow man," end quote. Finally, prepare yourselves for what lies ahead. The demons of our age, some of whom disguise themselves as politicians, delight in fomenting violence, sowing distrust and prejudice, and persuading the public to support tyranny disguised as patriotism. Overcoming the evils of our age will require more than intellect and activism. It will require decency, morality, goodness, truth, and toughness, as Serling concluded in his remarks to the graduating class of 1968. Toughness is the singular quality most required of you. We have left you a world far more botched than the one that was left to us. Part of your challenge is to seek out truth, to come up with a point of view not dictated to you by anyone, be he a congressman, even a minister. Are you tough enough to take the divisiveness of this land and ours, that the fact that everything is polarized, black and white, this or that, absolutely right or absolutely wrong? This is one of the challenges. Be prepared to seek out the middle ground, that wondrous and very difficult to find Valhalla, where man can look to both sides and see the errant truths that exist on both sides. If you must swing left, you must swing right. Respect the other side. Honor the motives that come from the other side. Argue, debate, rebuke, rebut, but don't close those wondrous minds of yours to opposition. If you close your mind to opposition, you can't expand your horizons. In their eyes, you're the opposition, and ultimately, you end divisiveness by compromise. And so long as men walk and breathe, there must be compromise. Are you tough enough to face one of the uglier stains upon the fabric of our democracy? Prejudice. It's the basic root of most evil. It's a part of the sickness of man, and it's a part of man's admission. His constant sick admission that to exist he must find a scapegoat. To explain away his own deficiencies, he must try to find someone who he believes more deficient. Make your judgment of your fellow man on what he says and what he believes and the way he acts. Be tough enough, please, to live with prejudice and give battle to it. It warps, it poisons, it distorts, and it is self-destructive. It is fallout worse than a bomb. And worst of all, it cheapens and demeans anyone who permits himself the luxury of hating, end quote. The only way we'll ever achieve change in this country is for people to finally say enough is enough and fight for the things that truly matter. It doesn't matter how old you are or what your political ideology is. Wake up, stand up, speak up, and make your citizenship count for something more than just voting. Pandemic or not, don't allow your freedoms to be curtailed and your voice to be muzzled. It's our civic duty to make the government hear us and heed us using every nonviolent means available to us. Picket, protest, march, boycott, speak up, sound off, and reclaim control over the narrative about what is really going on in this country. Mind you, the government doesn't want to hear us. It doesn't even want us to speak. In fact, as I make clear in my book, Battlefield America, The War on the American People, the government has done a diabolically good job of establishing roadblocks to prevent us from exercising our First Amendment right to speech and assembly and protest. Still, we must persist. So get active, get outraged, and get going. There is work to be done. And this was authored by John Whitehead via the Rutherford Institute. I thought that was a very timely article. I will drop that link here in the live. So we had a lot to talk about today. We had to go there. We had to deal with some stuff, which is what we like to do every day on this show. That's what we do. That's how we roll. It should also be noted that the markets have been getting way, way worse. Way worse. Way, way worse. We are definitely experiencing a full-fledged Take Back Friday, straight up. It is Take Back Friday, Take Back Friday. I wish everyone a happy weekend. And think about what we talked about today. I think it was very timely. And I will see the rest of you guys, man, on Monday, PreMarket PulseScan. Everybody else I'll see in the trading room. And remember, we got that incredible deal going on right now. Just $9 a month to trade with us. Come break bread with us. See how it's done. Learn how it's done. Make money. Build that secondary income stream before your job is next on the cutting block. And with that being said, remember, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I'm out. Peace.